Welcome to the Worth It Practice podcast. I am so excited about my guest today, and I know you will be too when you realize that Danielle Swimm, the entrepreneurial therapist, is joining me today. So I have known Danielle for I think about a year at this point, maybe a little bit longer. Danielle's my business coach, and her podcast was the first podcast I was ever a guest on, way before I ever thought about having any podcast, let alone one of them being a business podcast. So we're here. I can't wait to interview Danielle and just get all of her insights about mindset and how to grow to be a therapist entrepreneur and some of her hot takes. So Danielle, welcome so much to the show.
Yeah, I am so excited to be here. I think you have this gift of making people feel very comfortable. So I know this is just going to be like a very easy conversation. And I've been wanting to be on your show. I mean, this is really cool to see. I saw behind the scenes of it being born and where it is today. And like, I absolutely see where it's going. So I'm just cool to get in now. I'm very honored.
No, I'm really honored to have you, obviously. And I think everyone listening to this probably knows who you are, but can you just describe yourself for a second in case they have not been following you and listening to your podcast?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a therapist, so I still do see therapy clients in my practice. That's where I am right now as we're recording this. I have an office in Annapolis, Maryland, so I'm like maybe an hour outside of DC. I started out with just a solo private practice, but I've always been kind of entrepreneurial. I even had a dog walking company in college. I was one of those people that just was always kind of out on my own, doing my own thing. I started my own practice, and then after just a couple of years, I really focused on additional revenue streams from there. And when I started my own practice, I started an Instagram account, and I called it Entrepreneurial Therapist. And I had 0 followers. I didn't tell anyone that I even started it. I was like so embarrassed that if my family or friends knew I was on Instagram. And I just randomly found other therapists on there. And I was like, oh, this is me moving into my therapy office. This is me experimenting with Facebook Live to get clients into my practice. And people started asking me, how are you doing this? Do you do any coaching? And I was like, absolutely, I do. So I just created this coaching company, and I just worked with therapists one-on-one. I barely charged anything. Then I started growing my audience online and really started to learn about courses and masterminds and retreats and podcasts and newsletters and all the things that I do today. I'm just very grateful that I am able to work in the way that I do. I love the work that I do. I can truly say that. I don't love every aspect of it, but I do love the people that I work with. I love the things that I get to do behind the scenes. I get to meet people like you and some of our colleagues that we both know. And so it's just a really cool career that it's all turned out to be.
I love just hearing you talk about your journey there and about how you just took that opportunity when people were asking, do you do coaching? And you're like, well, now I do. I will create a container for this coaching. I will walk you through it. And then you just grew and grew and grew until the business that you have right now.
It was a grind. I got one-to-one people. And then as I started to sell courses, my first course launch was great. The second one wasn't good. So it's been ups and downs with everything. We're in 2026. The first quarter was really amazing with all of my products that I launched in quarter one. And that felt really good because I know business ebbs and flows and there's different seasons to everything. But that's after 5 or 6 years of putting out free content, really building a community and being able to do it in this way that feels good to me.
What you offer people and the authenticity with which you offer it is so appealing and so relatable and so genuinely helpful. I'm not surprised that everyone was jumping on board because, you're wonderful to work with. So I absolutely understand why your Q1 was amazing.
I try to be authentic as much as I can. I have to push myself some seasons because it can be hard to even share things online or your own story. I'm sure you know parts of that having your own podcast, but it is so important. I always started Entrepreneurial Therapist being I don't want to curate an image of I'm sipping a margarita on a beach while building an online business because that's not my experience at all. I'm going to talk about my own realities and people are going to relate to them. And Jasmine Star says this a lot, retract or repel. And I think the more you can just be yourself online, the more you will attract the people that are meant to work with you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that really attracted me to you is how big of a thinker you are. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember this distinct moment where I was listening to your podcast and you were talking about this place you were and this meeting you were in and the way you were thinking about why 10x is better than 2x, which I had never heard anybody say before. And I stopped right there and I thought, I'm going to email Danielle. That's what I did. I emailed you and I was like, I need one meeting with you where you can tell me how to be around people who think like that, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the room I need to be in. I'm not in a room that's thinking big enough right now. And then that's what really started your and my coaching work together, because you gave me direction and then I started entrepreneur organization,
Mm-hmm.
got involved there. So that like mindset work and the way that you were able to look at someone and see like the version of them that is the version they actually want to be. I don't understand how you do that. It's like you look at someone and you're like, Leah, I see this vision for you. And I would never have even thought about it, but then it's easy to make it a reality. What is your secret, Danielle? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a secret, but it's interesting because that's a gift and it sometimes is a curse because sometimes I do, and I'm honest in that way where someone will come to me and be like, this is my plan, this is my big idea. And I will say, like, I don't see that for you. I don't think this is a good avenue. For example, Instagram. A lot of therapists are like, I want to grow on Instagram. I want to have a brand. Some therapists, I'm like, yeah, I totally see. I think you're going to be great on video. And others, I'll direct them to another platform. I'm like, I don't see this for you. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't see that being like the culture that you fit into or for whatever reason. Or I just don't see you being happy building whatever it is that you are seeking out to build. But then there's the pro where I could see like things with you where it's like I could totally see you doing that. You don't see yet how much capability you have and how different you are from everybody else and all of that. But I think I'm able to see that because I had to see that in myself. And I did curate communities myself that I put myself into with other female entrepreneurs who were doing big things. So I was able to study the psychology of what makes someone great early on and how to replicate that within myself. So I can see it when I'm working with someone else, like, oh, you're going to be really big, or somebody else where I'm like, okay, I think you're going to be really happy doing it this way. And it might not be quote unquote big, but this is actually what's going to make you happy.
That is an amazing gift. No one wants to be lied to, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like it's not useful. It's not useful in therapy and it's not useful in coaching or consulting to have somebody tell you the things that you want to hear. ChatGPT can tell you what you want to hear
Right.
every single day. But how did you start seeing that in yourself? Like, how did you know that you needed a bigger community? No one was talking about that. At least no one I was listening to was talking about that a couple of years ago. So how did you figure that out and then know to get that for yourself?
Yeah, I didn't have it at all. So I was similar to you and other people I've talked to. So everyone in my family like works for the federal government. I'm in DC, so that's very common. No one's really an entrepreneur. No one in my family even really knows what I do. Most of it. I think some people know I have a podcast. They don't really understand all the aspects of like courses, retreats, masterminds, even a therapy practice, which I'm okay with. And so it's like, okay, if I'm around people that don't really understand what I'm doing, that's not going to move me forward. So I need to like put myself in rooms that make sense. But it was this moment of like when I started going to business conferences and I started going to like business retreats where I was in person with other people that I felt like I fit in for like the first time in my life. Where I was like, oh, they also like to read nonfiction books and they like geek out over marketing strategies or scaling or mindset stuff. Where other people I knew couldn't care less about that. That just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't their jam like it was mine. It was just a feeling of like, oh, I belong here. Like I've always belonged here. I don't have the results that they have yet, not even close. But one day I am going to have the results that I'm seeking, but I'm going to continue to put myself in rooms with people that are where I want to be, even though I feel insecure, even though like my life doesn't reflect any success yet. I'm going to just keep showing up consistently. And there's a book I'm reading, like kind of woo woo. It's called the surrender experiment. I've never been like, Danielle, you are the one that has to figure this out 100% of the time. It's also part of me like just surrenders to the path ahead where, yeah, I work definitely and I grind during some seasons, but it's like I do feel like I'm being led and I'll look for signs. And I think there's a bigger picture and vision for me that was created for me. And I just lean into that. And that helps take some of the pressure off of me to figure it all out myself.
You started going to some business conferences and then you like met your people and then you realized you needed people like that all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I tend to be more shy and like introverted. So putting me in a room with, first of all, I'm like very young when I'm doing this. I'm still in my like 20s, my late 20s. I was going through a divorce and like a single mom with an 18-month-old at home. My life was not pretty financially. It wasn't pretty just overall. Nothing looked good or felt good inside. But I was like, I'm going to keep doing this and showing up for my dreams and seeing what happens from there. So then I started making friends with people that were also in the online space, going to these things too. And that's when I was like, I'm going to create communities like my mastermind or my online course or even my podcast where I can attract people that feel similar to me, like that don't have communities to lean into, that don't have a mentor in their ear. I want to be that person. I want to create that community. And now for work, for a living, I get to be part of that community that I created, which is so fun for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it doesn't have to be all bros.
Yes, right. And I mean, in my community, like just yesterday, people are like, okay, during the luteal phase, I want to burn everything down. Wow, this is happening every month. What do I do? Or like, I'm up all night with a baby. And that's what it was. It was like going to these conferences and these men on stages, like, testosterone's flying and I'm leaving like feeling so motivated and invigorated. But I am going home to an 18-month-old who's keeping me up all night. And I am a single mom and my life is kind of a mess. Like, how does this apply to me specifically? Because it doesn't fit my life like the cookie cutter way I would like it to. So that's where I designed it, where I work with women. I work with female therapists where we can talk about what's actually holding us back because it is different than like, you know, quote unquote bro culture, what you see online with the motivation and entrepreneurship. They also have great strategy and ideas. I learn a lot from them, but it is different when you apply it to us.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And I think that's one of the really powerful things that you talk about a lot is that the expectations are just different.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way you approach things. And it doesn't mean there isn't a lot to learn from men as well. It's like you have to figure out how you're going to make it work in the life that you have with the cultural and social expectations on you being completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I talk kind of a lot about being an entrepreneur organization because I love it. And it's 30% women only. And for Houston, that's actually huge. They're like very proud of 30% women. But there are a lot of events, and there are a lot of events that happen at night. And it is hard for me to get to those events. It's a lot more negotiating and problem solving to go to enough events where I really get the impact that I want. And many of the men there show up all the time because they just have people at home that provide support as part of their role. So I can get there. And I have a supportive husband who will do things to let me get there. But it is outside the gender role every single time I do that. I think there's a barrier and a mom guilt feeling that is definitely higher for me than there are for the dads who are just going to those things.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and it's talked about more now. Like I'm plugged into more eight-figure entrepreneurs who are talking about it that are also moms, etc. So now it's more normalized in my world, but people who are just entering this world that you and I are in, they're like their eyes are open, like, "Oh, wow, I can't believe that's really what's holding me back from scaling." Like it is your capacity and having the capital to expand your capacity with a house manager, a nanny, even getting a massage to regulate your nervous system. Like these are the things we really have to look into to expand your capacity.
Yeah, it's so much easier to just take on everything and be like, I will grind through it instead of thinking, how do I take good enough care of myself so that I'm actually able to act on all this inspiration that I have and why that's so incredibly important to be
Yeah.
able to do.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think most of us try that. Like, I know I certainly have, where it's like, I'm going to white knuckle it and I'm just going to wake up at 4 a.m. like these
Mhm.
other guys are and grind it out. And then your body starts to shut down and you get brain fog and autoimmune conditions or like mental health issues, whatever the side effect is. Like, it's just not sustainable long term for most of us to do it that way. But it's like, my message is it's still a possibility for you too, like the end result of success. We just got to curate it differently, your journey, so that you can take care of yourself, take care of the people that you also love, whether it's your kids, your parents, whoever, so that we can have quote unquote balance while you're building something and scaling.
Right. And then I think also not feeling somehow deeply guilty
Yeah.
about doing those things. Sometimes I feel guilty about succeeding. And I'm like, what is that about? And I have to go back and think about that and process that. What does it mean that success sometimes feels uncomfortable? And would it feel uncomfortable in this way if I were a man? And I don't know. That can be hard and that can hold you back. And you don't even know it is affecting your decisions.
Right. Yeah. Somebody that said it recently to me. They're like, it's 80% mindset, 20% skill. And that is so big because
Mhm.
we spend so much money on skill, on ads and marketing and strategy and even time, where it's like, just tell me how to do it. And I think a lot of therapists know how to do it. There's enough courses out there right now and books and YouTube videos, and AI will tell you everything you want to know. But it's the mindset of how do you like expand your capacity? How do you have time? How do you have the energy in your own body to implement? Like, what is your vision of success? What stops you is like you're comparing yourself to everybody else online. That's the nitty gritty that actually needs to be worked through. So it's interesting because I'll work with therapists and they're like, on their onboarding form, it's like, I want to learn all this strategy. And then I get on a call with them. And then just a few calls in, it's like, oh, there's a lot more to this that they just didn't see right away that we really have to dive deep into to work on the mindset. I do say you need to be delusional.
Mhm.
There has to be sprinkles of delusion where you can see a reality so clear that is your future that there is no evidence that this even has a possibility to exist yet. And that is where like visualization has been big for me. Journaling has been big for me. Like crying, doing some identity work, and also just being very okay with being misunderstood, whether it's by people in my own life that aren't entrepreneurs or people online that might misunderstand me or whatever it is that happens. So really working through people pleasing and fear of being seen, I think is on everyone's to-do list as they scale.
Is it okay if I ask you what one of the biggest mindset shifts you had to make was in order for you to build this incredibly successful coaching business on top of your practice?
Yeah, it's interesting because like something happened behind the scenes, like on my team just a couple of weeks ago, where I am like very direct when I'm unhappy about something. And I do it in a way that's still kind. I'm a very patient and understanding person, but once somebody like crosses a certain line, I'm like ding 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 and I'll just go in about like this is why I'm unhappy, this is what's going to happen. And somebody on my team was like, "Oh my gosh, you are so direct. I have a lot to learn from you on how to be that way as a leader." And that was never me before, so that is part of the mindset, is working on the people pleasing. Like, of
Mhm.
course, I still want people to like me. That's never going to go away. But I also need to be authentic enough as a leader and like true enough to myself where I'm not going to mute my own voice when I know it's what I need to speak up and say because I'm worried about being misunderstood or hurting someone's feelings. Men just don't think like that. And so I've
Mhm.
been on calls with other women where I'm like, okay, if you were a man, we just wouldn't be having this conversation as a leader. That has been a big shift for me, and like being okay with not being liked by everyone or not being liked for a decision and what that looks like. And I still toy with that. If I get a negative comment, sometimes it still will like feel really yucky, and other times I can block and delete it. I don't get a lot of those, knock on wood, but stuff like that I think held me back a lot in the beginning. I was like stumbling over my own words in the beginning because I was like, oh, but I don't want to say this and be misunderstood or make this person mad, da 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 da, where I wasn't even saying anything.
Mhm.
Like no one could understand me because I was so worried about making somebody else mad in a hypothetical situation that never even happened. So I had to work through that to really be able to like use my voice and get my message across in a way that was authentic to me.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And also that phrase you just said, like, I don't unmute my own voice anymore. To me, that's so powerful because that's what women are taught to do. And
Mhm.
that's what's so scary about being visible, invisible in a bigger way. You have a podcast where all you do is use your voice,
Right,
right?
right.
And your consulting business is using your voice. And so is your therapy practice. And
Mhm.
if you're trying to mute yourself while you're trying to be heard at the same time, they'll absolutely ruin your life. It's in opposition to your exact goal. And it's the thing women are taught to do.
Right. Yeah, and it's like you're gonna be disliked no matter what by somebody. So even if I was still in community mental health and I never even opened my own practice, somebody there would have disliked me for something. That's just gonna happen. And that helps me be like, okay, so I might as well do what I feel called to do because it's gonna happen either way. You can't avoid that scenario altogether. I also have a lot of people tell me, oh, I don't want to do this because I don't want to manage people. And I love that saying because it's like no matter what you do, you're going to manage people if you're scaling, you know?
Mhm.
And like, why don't you want to manage people? Because now this is like a gold nugget to work through. You want to be liked, or you're an avoidant and can't handle confrontation, whatever it might be. It's like you're going to have to manage people in some aspect. And it's a great tool to work through yourself personally so you can become a better leader too. I mean, you lead so many people, Leah. Like, you know this. It's really like a personal development journey that you go on.
No, that's so true. Just thinking about asking yourself that question, am I muting my own voice in
Hmm.
this moment? Like, do I need to say the thing that I really need to say right now?
Right.
And how do I catch myself when I want to mute my own voice? Especially, I mean, I know I've been punished over the years in a lot of situations for speaking up too much because,
Mhm.
again, not socially acceptable. And then it's unlearning that part of things. It's really
Right.
hard to do.
Yeah, but it's also like I want to pave that way for my daughter. And my
Right.
daughter doesn't have an ounce of people pleasing in her. God bless this 6 year old. I don't know how it's going to pan out, but right now she is so strong willed and she'll tell you exactly how she feels. And I wasn't like that at 6. I was already like muting myself, etc. So I think it's like bigger picture, we can create generations that are able to use their voice in a way that is still kind and grounded in who they are, but also they're not muted in the same way I think our generation was.
You know what I thought of immediately when you said that is I also have a 6-year-old, and we were getting our nails done recently, like a little mommy daughter thing. And she looked at the nail technician and she said, that spray just hurt my fingers. Can you not use it anymore? I immediately felt uncomfortable because it's like you
Yeah.
don't give feedback to the nail technician, right? You let them just tear your fingers apart.
Yeah, and I've done this before. Yes.
Yeah, you don't say anything. But then I was like, good for you. Like,
Hmm.
good for you. You don't like that spray. That's fine. And I love that she didn't even hesitate. Like, she was really nice about it,
Hmm.
but she did not even hesitate to give that feedback to the nail technician, who, of course, did not mean to hurt her, but she hates those alcohol sprays. And I'm like, that is a good unmuted voice right there.
Yeah, and she's learning that from you. She's learning how to actually use her voice, and I think that is gold. Like, that's beautiful.
That's what we want for our kids. And I love how
Yeah.
you're talking about that when we pursue our own vision, we model that for our own daughters and for children in general,
Hmm.
that you can do hard things, which is a core value.
Yeah, and I think we also like you never know who's watching. So you might have 20 followers on Instagram and 2 downloads of your podcast, and you could be completely changing someone's life, and they're just not reaching out to you yet about it. And I've had this happen through the years where it's someone's like, I have followed you for years. This is the first time I'm reaching out to you. You've really helped me when my mom died, or I got a
Mhm.
divorce, or whatever they were struggling with that I shared, I had gone through. And like, you have no idea how much you've impacted my business. And I've never even directly talked to them. And that is like what motivates me so much is you really don't know who's listening and
Right.
whose life you're impacting by doing this work, by just showing up as yourself.
No, that's so true. I hadn't thought about that, but I'm not surprised people are reaching out to you after consuming your podcast and then changing the way they're handling people, changing the way that they're using different strategies, maybe even just opening themselves up to possibilities they didn't have before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We're recording this podcast right now, and we have no idea how many people will listen to it over time. And it just feels like a conversation you and I are having. and we have conversations, but it's really always fascinating that it doesn't feel like we're actually going to put this somewhere, but then it will be available. And hopefully it feels valuable and worth it to whoever needed to hear this right now.
Yeah, and that's like, I think, scary for people because they're like, oh, I don't know who's going to hear it sometimes, but we want to frame it as like an exciting viewpoint that you have, that like you could really impact people that you just can't doing like one-to-one therapy only. Now you're able to impact a lot more people by giving yourself a microphone, giving yourself a platform, and putting yourself out there like that.
Yeah, it is. I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, me too, because it's like you really don't know who's watching. It could be like Google could become a client. You know, we could be talking about like big conglomerates that are listening to your stuff down the line that really, and you had no idea that someone from their team was watching you. So you just show up as like the best version that you can that day, and that makes a huge difference. I listen to Gary Vee a lot. He repels and attracts, if you want to talk about that, right? But some of his stuff is so spot on about people are like, creating content is so much work. I was just on Claude this morning and I created a Claude. I was like, create my content map so I can have a graphic to show people how I'm using you to create content. And I want a visual for it. So it created that. And I thought it was like such a nice visual. It's like colors and everything. But Gary Vee does have like a lot of quotes around creating content is a lot of work. So that's what people tell him. Like, I don't know if I have the time for it. And he's like, look at this as an opportunity. Like, your grandparents never had this opportunity to like reach millions of people just from their phone. But you're able to do this without spending any money. And I think that is a really good way to like view creating content, making an impact, and like scaling your revenue streams too.
No, that it leads to bigger things, that it has a positive impact on other people. I think when people say that, they're often just really scared of being seen and the possible rejection of being seen in that way. So it's easy to say it's too much work without getting to that underlying block of what would happen if people saw what I created? What if a lot of people saw it?
Yeah, and I like the question of like, people, you're scared of being seen because you're like, somebody's going to be like, ooh, who does she think she is? So ask yourself that question, like, who do you think you are? And that's the deeper work. Like, I can be comfortable most of the time showing up, and like, if I have hypothetical judgment in my head, because I know who I am, I'm comfortable with what I'm offering, the results I can get people, because I've gotten results. So I feel more comfortable in that. But you have to have that showing up the first time that you're doing it, the second time where you don't have this solid ground yet to really stand on. So it's that identity, like mindset work, that makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Danielle, I feel like I've gotten free coaching out of you today.
Yay, good. Yeah, I hope that's how everyone feels.
I think that everyone should really take the things that you're saying and really like give themselves some bandwidth to think about it, to think about like what in your mindset could be interfering. Are you muting your own voice? Like, what is scaring you so that you don't do the thing that would really help you? If you need Danielle to actually talk you through those things, she does have programs that you can join.
Yeah, I definitely do. I have a podcast too, the Entrepreneurial Therapist podcast you could listen to. I have a weekly newsletter I put out every Thursday, the Therapist Thursday newsletter that goes out, and I'll make sure you have the link to put in the show notes for that. But like, this is the stuff I love to talk about. It's the mindset work, and then I also talk a lot about strategy, which Leah is fantastic at. But it's like, if we can combine those two worlds, if you can have a great mindset and have good strategy, anyone is unstoppable in that scenario.
Oh, you're so right. And thank you for saying that about me. But I totally agree with you. If you can have the mindset that lets you actually use the strategy, and then you learn about how to use AEO, for example, which I thought we would talk about, and we don't have time to talk about, although Danielle has a lot of content about that on the Entrepreneurial Therapist podcast. There's some great episodes about AI. And if you follow the Worth It Practice newsletter, you know that I've featured those episodes over and over again. So definitely get in there, learn about AI in your marketing, and you have a lot of resources to get the mindset that Danielle has. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Leah. I appreciate it.
All right. And I hope you are enjoying the podcast, and I will talk to you again next Tuesday.